Okay, here we go. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Indie Film Cafe. I'm your host, Paulie Presenza, otherwise known as the MooCow, and I am joined by
Jonathan Moody.
Very cool. And today we are joined by
And Joe.
Yay, Joe. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Gosh, when was the last movie that we had you on here? It's
All
like,
right, there were two.
yeah.
One of them, the recording didn't come out right though. It was the one where they're in the cabin with all the snow. I can't remember what that was. And then the aliens.
Yeah, the crickets from hell.
Yeah, but that's the
oh.
one that the recording didn't come out right, and then the other one we did was Sextet.
It was
Sextet. There you
Blood
go. Blood Predator.
Blood Predator, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love that movie. It's so bad.
That was fun.
That didn't come out right, and that was gonna be like a Patreon only that we were
And
doing.
actually, that's not exactly the last ones. The last ones I remember,
Oh, the Christmas.
Fun in Balloon
I forgot
Land.
about that. I repressed that. Sorry.
Fun in Balloon Land and
Santa
Claus
versus
meets the ice cream
Meets
bunny.
the
Oh,
ice.
not versus. That's
Yes,
the
'cause
one
they're
we wanted
buddies.
to see.
They're
Yeah.
snuggle buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't actually stay around for the videotaping.
After,
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Nope. I just stayed for the movie.
Stayed for
Fun
the
and Balloon
torment.
Land. But
Yeah,
you
and
did.
the
Outstanding.
snacks.
I think you were only
Yeah.
going to plan to stay for a little bit, and then you ended up
Get
staying
sucked
for the
in.
I did totally got something.
Yeah.
Ridiculous movie.
Uh,
Well, I'm glad you're here because, as I was saying earlier, it's about time we do a stinky vampire movie. And today's movie is called Die Hard Dracula, which I have talked to you about me doing at some point.
I think so. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, and
Is
you
it
were
Die
like,
Hard
is
with
it Die Hard?
Dracula?
Yeah.
Does
No.
he
Damn
sound
it.
like Yuppie Cut or anything
No.
like
But it is ridiculous and silly, and it has some special
Now,
effects.
Die Hard with Dracula. That would be fun. You know, like Die Hard with
Dracula
vampires.
climbing through the air vents and stuff.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
Nakatomi Plaza, yeah.
Yeah,
That would have
that's
made
it.
the regular Die Hard a lot more fun for me.
Down with capitalism, says Dracula.
Yeah. But in any
Bruce Willis
event,
as a vampire now. That
Oh,
hasn't
there we
happened
go.
yet.
I
That's
know.
You know.
But in any event, we will come back and talk about this movie after some mood music.
Du Jetsiva Ladrak, Lekan Moravia, Bestie, Rostram Vas Shekni Nakusi.
I'm not sure that the price of canned pumpkin fluctuates all that much. It
That's true.
seems a pretty standard commodity item.
All right, so we are back.
Woo!
Okay, so what did you guys think of Die Hard Dracula?
It made me angry.
Really?
It
Why?
made me die really hard.
It made. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more, like throughout the whole show. You'll find out why it made me angry. I don't want to just say all the
I
things
think
right
it
now.
just made, you yearn for Bruce Willis?
It made me sad that this wasn't Die Hard and with Dracula, but I don't know. We'll talk about
Well,
it.
there was a lot of fire in it.
That's right.
It got there.
That's right. And, think of all the clothing changes that happened, except
Oh
for
my God.
one guy.
Happened a lot, except for one guy.
All right, so this movie pissed you off. What happened?
All right, so you want to go with the story right now, I guess. So it starts back like 300 years ago, because this is supposed to be what 1599 or something, I think, or 1699.
$15.99. Yeah.
Well,
It was on sale.
$15.99 plus 300 would be
16, 17,
$18.99.
$18.99?
So it'd be $16.99.
Maybe it was 60. I thought they said 15.
I thought they said 15 too.
Tax.
Did
Oh.
they get the dates wrong?
In this movie, getting something wrong?
I don't know. So anyway, I thought it started in 1599, and then they said 300 years later, or whatever.
Which would be $18.99, and then they were jet skiing, so that's off. Or
Yeah.
water skiing.
And so it was definitely 1999.
You say they didn't jet ski back in 1899?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Not the way they were doing it.
I don't know. It wasn't there.
But
Safety nerd.
I know, seriously, that fucking pissed me off too. Like, wow, somebody really thought safety was a nerdy thing. All right, you know, well, you know what? It's funny that she said that, and then later she died.
I know.
You know, or whatever. So, you know, that's what you get for making fun of safety.
Right. So there's this Dracula thing. They go through this whole ridiculous bit about that, and all these people suffering because of Dracula. Blah blah blah. He gets some chick.
No,
And
he dies, doesn't he? Or he gets like killed.
the
or
guy
something.
who ends up becoming Dracula does. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then he ends up coming back to life, and then flying through the air in his coffin, and going into a castle.
And then he gets some chick that King Vitamin wants to have for himself.
Right. Right.
And I say King Vitamin because he looks exactly like the King from King Vitamin cereal. So
I've
ridiculous.
never even heard of that.
Yeah,
I thought he looked
that's-
like the Burger King kind of.
He
With
just
the plastic crown.
he looked ridiculous.
He
And
was about to take the virgin chick and have his way with her, and then Dracula came and
Yep.
saved her, and then he'd have his way with her.
Yeah.
So.
Fortunately, she had her running shoes on with her pajamas at the same
Right,
time.
right.
Pajamas at like 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yep.
Right.
As you
Yep.
do.
But
Well, as we all know,
I mean,
Americans are lazy.
Have you been to Walmart lately? Have you seen what wanders around?
Were you like a virgin?
So anyway, he's doing it, but he's trying to take the virgin, but he does it right on top of Dracula's coffin, which he doesn't like. So he breaks out, kills King Vitamin, and then takes the chick for himself.
Right.
Then we suddenly shift, and we are now in the future or the present or whatever the hell we went.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it went to the future, but now it's it was supposed to be our present, which
The
was 90s.
Somewhere in some lake, someplace, and you've got dime store Brendan Fraser and his shirtless buddy and his shrewish girlfriend, and they are water skiing in a lake, and he's like, this was fun, but girls shouldn't do that because it's for men only or something stupid.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then he's like, well, you better put on the here's your water vest.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, safety nerd. And then they do water skiing, and of course she drowns and
She
dies.
drowns and dies, but I mean, like they didn't really go back for her much.
Not really.
Like they went swimming for her, and then they kind of gave
They
up.
looked for like 2 minutes, and then he went home and had some chicken.
As you do.
Yeah.
And then his parents are like, "Are
Is
you
there
doing
something
okay?
wrong
Is
with
there
the
something-"
chicken?
Oh.
I mean, my girlfriend just died. Yeah, but that's not what I asked. How's
Right.
the chicken?
How's the chicken? Because he was like moving that same pea around his plate.
Yeah.
And then we cut to a funeral happening with some person.
Someone
some
else,
couple,
somewhere else.
Somewhere else, which doesn't even say somewhere else.
Which
It
we
just-
didn't really know. I think at first we all thought it was her.
No, she
right?
did it because he's seen it. But
Oh, okay, but we
we
thought.
thought.
But then when they opened the coffin, wait. The meteor has to hit first.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
right.
there's a meteor. It was a falling shooting
Shooting
star.
star,
Right.
right.
And the shooting star happens in what is it? In America or whatever. We see it. They see
Right.
it, and then
In the sky.
And he
wishes-
makes his little wish.
He makes his little wish, and then it flies and lands. In
Exactly right on top of the coffin of
Oh,
this
the
girl that we have no idea who this is.
right.
Which turned out to be a coffin in Moravia. But anyway.
Right.
Yeah, like over by
We
Prague
don't need that information now.
No.
It'll come out later.
Now.
in a few minutes. It'll come out because then the guy just randomly decides to go to Prague.
Yep.
Like there's no like, oh Dad, hey, I'm gonna go to Prague for business or.
Did we even identify that that's the city they were in?
Yeah,
Did
it
we?
is.
It
But I'll
is?
tell you
Okay.
what, did you notice when he was giving his mom a hug, what did he have? He had a big, giant bag. And what do you think was in that big, giant bag?
Not clothes.
So, son of a bitch, he brought plenty of clothing. You just never saw
I'm
it.
not sure if we've explained fully how mad you are about this, but it's like every character in the movie, like when they change scenes or if it's a different day, they're all wearing different clothes, except for the hero, who always has the same button-down, like light blue shirt. He never, ever changes his clothes. Even after he falls into a river, I mean, he's just like, whatever, you know, I'm
just going to wear it till it dries.
Yeah, yes, because that's what you do.
Literally every other character changes clothes. Even Van Helsing changes clothes.
But he does, when he has sex, he does have no shirt on.
Yeah. Now,
which I think they had to surgically remove it or something.
There is, I suppose, a reason, because remember, after he's been pining and going from one stupid bar to the next and getting drunker and drunker and drunker, he ends up driving in his little car to Moravia. Because remember, that one waiter guy is like, "Are you going to sightsee?" And he's like, "I'm going to Moravia." And the guy's like, "I'll see you later."
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, what the hell was that?
That was so strange.
Weird. And then...
But you never see him again.
Right. You never see that guy again. But then so dime store Brendan Fraser drives off in his little yellow car and he has an accident because he's stupid. And he runs off the road, and it doesn't explode like most movies. But first thing he does is that he's got a big cut in his head and he jumps out of the car and he just runs randomly in the woods.
Are you saying
he left his bag?
Are you saying that the car that doesn't explode is the most realistic thing that happened in this movie?
Probably. But clearly he left his giant bag of clothing behind.
Okay, and that's more important than the fact that the road was 15 feet away and he could have run up to the road and like flagged down help and gone to a hospital maybe?
Yeah.
No, it's like, the road's 15 feet away. There is an endless sea of woods. I'm going with the woods.
And ravines.
I'm going with the woods. I'm going to go around. Maybe there'll be a town there. Maybe.
Yeah.
I might be eaten by wolves. It doesn't matter because you know what? Going the other way would be what every other movie does.
I mean, the movie'd be over in like 5 minutes.
And besides, they're Euro wolves, so they're liable to be fabulous.
Oh.
So instead, he ends up running into a weird pub where they start to make fun of him and try to get him to kiss some ugly fat woman.
Which was like the mom.
Yes.
Like the guy's just like, go make out with my ugly wife. Like
fat ugly wife.
First of all, why is she okay
with
it?
Are you doing
this? She's like, I'm owning the fact that I'm.
She's not just okay. She runs up and she tries like chest bump.
I know.
Yeah,
so she belly bumps him.
Belly bumps him.
It was like a sumo move. and like, wow.
And you got to understand, our quote-unquote hero is the whiniest voice the entire time. And he's like, why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. And at that point is when Carla comes down and is like, oh, guys, please stop teasing the poor, stupid American. He's kind of cute. Let's just let him relax.
So another thing that I told you before that really annoys me, and this happens in a lot of movies, this isn't just this movie, but when there's an American tourist or something, right? They automatically already know he speaks English. Now, he could speak Italian, he could speak whatever. Normally, in a situation, they would still be talking in their language, you know?
Nope.
Until he opens his mouth or something.
Right. And then they go, oh, you know English. I know English too.
Because deep in the woods of Moravia, wherever the hell that is, they're all talking English.
And that pisses me off. It's such an annoying thing. It's so easy for independent filmmakers to just fix this, especially when most of those actors were probably from like Czechoslovakia, whatever, or Czech or Slovakia or whatever.
Wherever it was shot.
Wherever it was shot. Because they all had weird like last names. I was pretty sure they were foreign.
Weird costumes.
Weird costumes. I mean, they were great. And they were probably my favorite part of the movie. It's just each person was
including the doctor.
That guy had a character. Like, at least he was somebody, and you know what? He didn't change his shirt because he was a doctor, and that's what a doctor would look like.
But the problem is that he really wasn't a doctor. He was a dentist.
Yes. Okay.
And we find that out because Dracula makes an appointment to go to the fucking dentist to get a tooth looked at. Because that happens.
That was a great scene.
That was so fucking
Yeah, but
stupid.
it's just like on the phone with him. He's like, that was Dracula. He needs a root canal. Like, what?
He needs to get his fangs fixed. He needs to get one of his fangs fixed. And then he goes to take it, and the fucking, he messes up his fang or whatever, and he gets really mad at him and, like, kills him.
That's just so funny. But before we get to that,
It's actually down the line.
Yeah, it's down the line.
Let me point out that you were talking about, how ethnocentric we are, and we'll go in and assume that everybody's going to speak English to us. Well, one, it could be because Americans just have this dopey look on our face that is instantly recognizable. And second, you undercut your argument by saying they all had weird last names, so they must be from over there.
I'm just saying, so they all could speak their language or whatever.
And in fairness, Dime Store Brendan Fraser did have a constant dopey look on his face, and he never seemed to have any clue what was going on, so he would just kind of do whatever they were doing in order to fit in. When they were talking about killing the werewolf or the vampire, and he's like, yeah, we should do that.
Did they all have like Eastern European accents except for the Brendan Fraser guy and Van Helsing?
They would all say a vake or a ver.
Well, even Van Helsing might have an
No,
accent.
Van Helsing did
He sounded like a New Yorker.
He occasionally went back and forth.
He did. I remember him saying "vape" a couple times.
He sounded just like somebody I know, though. So I'm like,
he kind of had a New Yorkian accent.
And I guess this is at the time where I can point out that the fact that Van Helsing was being played by Bruce Glover, who is Crispin Glover's father, and he's been in a whole bunch of crappy movies and B movies. I don't think so. Well, no, he is. But for example, like I know he was in. Do you remember Ghost World? Do you ever see Ghost World? Yeah. Do you remember the guy who's in the wheelchair in the coffee store?
It's been so long since
where he's like,
when it first came out.
Yeah, when he's like, getting all the free coffees because he's able to look up stuff on his computer. Yeah, that's him in the wheelchair.
But isn't that movie from like the 90s or 2000s?
Oh yeah. I think he's still around. He's just one of those. He's got those very, very recognizable face. I mean, you've seen that face before, I'm sure.
I think so. I recognized his name, like it was it was somebody who obviously had been in a bunch of B movies and other things, and other films. But I didn't know who he was, and I didn't know he was I didn't know Crispin Glover's father was an actor.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And the funny thing is that he's considered the lead actor in this film because instead of Dracula, because how many Draculas were there in this film? There were like 3. Guys. There was Count Chunkula.
Count Chunkula.
That was one fat weird Dracula, and then there was
Liberace,
Tommy Wiseau Dracula
I thought of him
with
as
the long hair.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because
he plays the piano, and the violin too.
Right.
Gets mad at the violin thing.
And then there was a kind of in-between guy who, like, that's the next thing plot-wise what happens is that when they're all talking about it, then they say, oh, we're going to get Van Helsing. Van Helsing shows up. And then all of a sudden when he says, oh yeah, we should investigate Dracula, boing, here comes Dracula dressed up like a hunter.
Was it Speak of the Devil?
Right.
He just showed up.
Speak of the Dracula.
Speak of the Dracula, and he just showed up, and he just walks in, sits down, he wants food. He's never ordered there before. He's never been there. And yet he's just like, I want my steak,
bloody rare.
That's all the proof we need. Says Dime Store Brendan Fraser, who's ready to kill this guy because...
No, it was one of the townspeople.
Yeah.
No, I think he said that. No, he said it.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, he did. He was the one who said it.
Well,
I remember that because I kept thinking to myself, like, that dude seriously is going to get himself in trouble by the law if he thinks
he is such a follower throughout much of that film. But, because he's not a hero. He's a terrible hero. I mean, even at the point where they're fighting Dracula, Van Helsing's like pushing him in to do things.
Well, and he's like,
I don't know what the whole point of that was. Like, I don't know if, like, I don't know if it was supposed to, like, have some kind of point that American boys or whatever couldn't handle a Romanian Dracula or whatever.
Well,
I think, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think they were trying to go for a comedy. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. That's what I think they were trying to do. Because remember at one point, like, the 300-year-old wife, the bedazzled wife, is like giving Dracula the finger.
Yeah,
and
and then he said, "Your fangs are bigger than others," and she looks down at her boobs like, "Thanks."
And
like
the one part where like he gets in his coffin and the coffin flies around to the right of the Valkyries and he's like, "I hate travel."
Traveling.
It's just ridiculous.
No more praying. 300 years I have listened to this awful praying, crying, and bullshit. I can stand it no more. I hate traveling.
Was trying to be funny, but
Not
obviously-
consistently though. It wasn't. It kind of went back and forth.
and like the attempts at jokes were just like
Terrible.
so bad that it's like,
Terrible.
I mean,
cringy at times.
yeah, it was very cringy.
It was ridiculous.
So Dracula orders food, and so they think they're gonna trick him somehow. So first, Van Helsing comes over and talks to him and shows some fire, and it freaks him out. And then he asks
pretty much.
cigar, and he's like, "Yeah, sure."
Breaks the mirror.
And then last, proof he does garlic bread.
Well, he gets his steak and he just grabs it and like starts sucking,
Sucking the blood out of it.
yeah.
which is not something you generally see at a restaurant. But
Right.
it is what it is.
It's all freaking
And then he takes his toast because we know that Dracula loves his toast.
He loves his carbs, man. We figured that out, man.
Absolutely.
That's why he got to be
Count
Chunkula.
Chunkula Dracula loves his carbs.
I don't know how he goes back from being Dracula to being like skinnier to being kind of in the
It
middle.
just changes without any real reason. But anyway, so chubby Dracula ends up biting into his toast, and it turns out that there is garlic in it. And he's like, "Oh, I don't like that," and so he leaves. And so then from there on out is when they decide, okay, so we have to go and kill Dracula because we don't really have anything else to do.
So Dracula's also killed one of the girls, Dana.
Yeah.
Who was just who we were all like
Washing
thinking
linens.
She was washing
in the
linens
river.
in the river, which was
Like
strange.
it was like freaking 1599,
Right.
But it's the 90s, the 1990s. And
Even in Moravia, Europe,
yeah, I mean they had electricity.
they have washing machines.
And-
Yeah, washing machines. They could have done that.
Yeah,
Maybe they're
come
just
on.
a cheap little place. I don't know. Maybe they're like, what?
Well,
let's fucking just
it's
do it in
an
the river.
easy way to sort of make her alone,
In
you
the
know, in the
woods,
woods.
Yeah. Which she's
It was
alone,
excellent
and,
writing. Excellent writing.
and Dracula comes in the daylight, the hat on,
Which
Yeah.
protects him.
which
Literally.
protects him a bit.
And that's the kind of thing that was probably written by itself some other time, and someone said, "Oh yeah, let's throw that scene in there," not caring whether it fit in with the rest of the narrative before or after it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but yeah, and then after it goes through all that, and he ends up making the chick into a
A vampire
vampire.
turns into her, which was so easy.
It's
I
ridiculous.
mean, he was like, "Oh, you've got marks on your neck," and she's like, "What
Really?
marks?"
Oh,
There, take him out for me.
There.
right.
It was so
And then after
ridiculous.
that, it just becomes one, adventure after another where they just go in to break into his castle, try to kill him, but because he's Die Hard Dracula, they can't kill him. So they set him on fire, they shoot him with a gun,
Cut his head off.
they cut his head off, they poke him with a pokey stick.
They shoot an arrow that has like fire, explodes.
After pouring gasoline on his head. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do everything but give him a noogie, basically, and none of it works. My favorite part is, if he gets his head cut off, he's like really irritated. He's like, "Oh, this really irritates me.
You
hurt
messed up my head.
messed up my head." And then he just puts it back on.
You know if they missed a joke, he could have said, "This is a real pain in my neck."
Yeah.
See, I would have laughed at that. I would have said, "That's actually good." That this movie's too good.
So
Or too bad,
ridiculous.
but it's like,
But in the
Fabulous,
meantime,
whatever.
during all of these different attempts, you get to see all of Dracula's fun powers. So, in addition to flying his coffin, he also picks up the girl and flies by herself at one point, butt first. And he's got blue vampire lightning, and he's got, I guess they're supposed to be fireballs, but they look like little flaming charcoal briquettes.
That's what they were.
And he just kind of tosses at them. And they're like, stop that. Go away. And, and at one point he throws one of the pointy sticks at them and it misses them. And then later on you find out it kills one of the crew members. And he's just kind of there.
Production assistant was just
We'll deal with that later. Just put a tarp on him.
Yeah, well, you know what? We'll leave it in the shot. We're no shot unturned.
And then just when it starts to get really, really strange and we're not sure what's going to happen, and then it turns out we're not really sure if any of this did happen. Moody's favorite thing. He's no!
So if you've listened to Indie Film Cafe enough times, you will know one of my biggest pet peeves is when people wake up and say it is all a dream. Because that is the cheapest ploy you can possibly do now.
And it's overdone to death.
There's been only 2 so far that I've actually liked, and I will point these out. One was Wizard of Oz, which was the first to ever do that. So I give it credit where credit's due, whatever. It did not bother me. That's okay. And especially since it's like it's already a book, whatever. Didn't bother me. There was another movie, I'm blanking on the title, but it was A Nun's Curse. And it had that, but it worked for it. And actually, I was so happy that it was just a dream because I actually liked all the characters. So I was like, oh man, this sucks. And then they bring it back and I'm like, oh. But then they go to the thing and I'm like, oh man, they're gonna die. They're just not gonna show it, kind of thing.
I have to put in a plug for Mulholland Drive though when you're talking about dream sequences that are like amazing.
Got it confusing, yeah.
Not confusing. You watch it like the second or third time. It's like every little piece fits in, and it's
right.
so awesome.
The first time you watch movies and they do shit like this, you're like, Then you watch it, then you actually piece it together.
At this point, it's been pretty played out, and it's like if you're going to do it, you have to have some pretty awesome twist on it.
This did not.
Or you could have like a weird actor who's like talking to you right here, and then he calls you on the phone and you pick it up, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm here too," and you're like, "What?"
What movie was that?
Mulholland Drive.
Oh, Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird, but so you're saying that if Alfred Hitchcock had done that in Psycho, you would have been perfectly cool with that?
No, I mean, if he had done it right, which he probably would have, if he had made it like where, was it the chick, the main Janet Leigh's character?
It was all a dream.
Woke up and it was all a dream. Somehow, if it made sense, but he wouldn't have done that. That's the thing. This is only done when you really have no idea how to end a fucking movie.
Right.
And that was this problem, was they really literally had killed every character or whatever and done everything, and then they're like, you know what? Let's make it all just a dream.
And then not only is it a dream, but everybody turns into a vampire at some point.
So the whole thing about it being like a dream while he was in a coma it was completely unnecessary because they all end up back at the castle and vampires anyway. So he clearly wasn't in a coma.
Or when was he? Like, that's my question. Like, because I thought, okay, maybe he was in a coma.
Explain yourself, movie.
Or yes, I yelled that. And it's the one part. So, like, the car flips over, and I thought, okay, that would be the perfect time for him to be in a coma, right?
Right.
But then she's talking to him like she knows who he is. He says Count Dracula, and she's just like, she's not like, what are you talking? Like
they're already clearly like romantically involved, so it couldn't be that. I think what happened is she turned him into a vampire and he passed out or something, and then when he woke up, they took him to a hospital to make him think he had a coma or something.
Well,
because I know it's like why?
It was completely the whole thing was completely unnecessary. Why did he not just wake up in the castle like, because I'm a vampire now?
They had a hospital room, and they were like, let's put that.
And you see that you're touching on something that is a hallmark of this particular film, which is that there's a lot of unnecessary stuff. that happens. That
Okay.
it doesn't advance the plot.
Like, making
It
sure
confuses the plot.
That you point out whether or not the characters washed their hands after they came out of the bathroom. Super important. We really need to see the car going through that tunnel. Super important because that is the tunnel to Moravia, and we must know that.
Right.
Super important that guy's like, where are you going, Moravia? See you soon. Or see you soon.
Yeah.
Like, and you never see him again. Like, it's just all these things that just piss me off. Like, it makes me so angry.
Girlfriend dies and he's home eating chicken.
The home eating chicken. And it was so funny.
Yeah, like, wow. And they took a long time with him just pushing that pea
And
around his plate. And
some of the dialogue was just hysterical when she's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's like, "Yeah, I wished upon a star after my girlfriend died," and then she's like, "Oh, I guess that's me. I stole your miracle."
Because he only wishes that she was
A drowned girl.
A drowned girl was alive.
Because
any drowned girl was alive.
Any drowned girl will do.
And that's how important she was to him. Yeah.
What? He was yelling her name constantly.
Maybe he's not good under pressure.
I mean, what
he's like, oh fuck, what's her name?
What he should have said was, when you drowned Carla, were you calling somebody a safety nerd? Did you wear your safety vest? No.
That's passive aggressive, like to the nth degree, right there.
Let's talk about, speaking of things like that, let's talk about all the consent that did not go along with it.
Oh,
So
God.
lots of different
Yeah.
issues with...
back in the 90s when you could just like reach your hand up a girl's skirt just cause, whatever.
Well.
Or like some random lady sits on your lap at dinner and you're like, I guess that's my invitation to put my hand in her shirt, like...
See what's in there. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know your
Are
name, but
you
here we
referring
go.
to the crying game?
There you go. Yeah, I don't want to play the
that
crying
one.
game.
So yeah, it's man, and it's just like there's so much stuff back in this time period that you just can't do now.
Right.
You can't get away with a lot of this stuff, which isn't a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing. Like this movie does so much wrongness to it.
So we have to talk a little bit about Dime Store Brendan Fraser. What did you guys think of him? He's our quote unquote hero.
Yeah. That's all I
Did you
think of.
do any background on this?
I mean, I did some, but most of these people did
Never-
not stand out at all.
Okay.
The only person who rang a bell was Bruce Glover.
Everybody else.
Yeah, the director Peter Horrick, all he ever did was he was a stunt guy, and he was a stunt guy in a number of different real movies.
Die Hard.
No.
I was in Die Hard, and now I'm making a movie called Die Hard Dracula.
I've actually got a list, and it's over in the other area,
Okay.
unfortunately. But no, I think he was in the Nutty Professor. He did stunts for that. He was
the
in
96 one, right?
yeah, the '96 one, and I forgot a couple of the other ones. But
So you're just like, I'm done being a stunt guy. Let me go direct my first.
this
movie.
is his one and only directorial
I
effort.
wonder why.
Yeah.
Like this, I'm sorry, Peter. You're probably a
And
fantastic stuntman.
nobody else that I saw really was anything more than a very rare bit player, other than, Bruce Glover. So there wasn't much to really say about all these other folks, other than Dime Store Brendan Fraser, and I keep calling him that because that's exactly what he looked like.
Yeah.
I thought at times he looked like Carrie Elwes from Princess Bride.
Oh, really? Well, when his hair was all like
Yeah.
swooshed over.
When he was actually looking good and stuff.
Maybe he was
I was like,
trying
if he had like
to
a little mustache thing, you know,
channel that.
Except he had kind of like Corey Haim's voice, and he just whined incessantly.
Hey, don't make fun of Corey Haim.
He really was the whiniest character.
I prefer Corey Haim over this guy.
Like when he comes down with the little whatever that was wrapped around his waist because he couldn't find his clothes, and he's like, Dracula took her out of my bed. Like, oh my God, what a hero!
I know. And then, like I said, he's supposed to be fencing Dracula at one point, and Van Helsing is just pushing him forward. Would you go and fight him?
Yeah.
I don't want to.
My favorite part about him saying, "Oh, he took her out of my bed." My father looks over and goes, "Your bed?" What? Like, this is the first I'm hearing about this.
Dad didn't know that they were engaged.
They didn't even know he was engaged. Didn't know they were dating. Didn't know anything.
Well, I mean, all that happened so fast. We couldn't believe any of that.
They knew each together for like 3 days and then were engaged.
Well, it's funny because, like, speaking of Alfred Hitchcock, I watched a bunch of his movies doing Hooked on Hitchcock, and a bunch of them have, like, where the person will meet them and, like, the next day they'll get engaged or get married. And I'm like, whoa, that
escalated quickly.
I know, and I think it's because a lot of those movies you just don't have time to, like...
Yeah. Part of that is compression of the story to make it fit within the time frame of the movie.
But, like,
however, there are better ways of showing that. The passage of time.
Passage of time or something, but you can't have passage of time in this movie. So don't get engaged.
And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't add anything.
Maybe it works because it helps to show how stupid both the characters are. I mean, you know,
that's true.
it could work on that level.
You didn't need to do much for that guy. One of my favorite things is when one of the many times they're climbing through the rocks in order to assault Dracula's castle, and dumbass drops his sword, and you were like, "Oh God!" And it went right over to Van Helsing, but it went right into his belt slash
Right.
perfectly.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, well, I guess
thanks for the warning."
Thanks for the warning."
Yeah. And I was like thinking, dude, that dude almost killed you, bro.
I know. It's like, can this guy be any more whiny and incompetent? I don't think so.
This guy almost killed you, Van Helsing, and yet you're also just looking at him going, okay,
I mean, I
yeah.
guess he's an okay-looking guy, so that's what his plus
that's
is.
the only thing he's got going for him. But God, the whining.
Yeah.
Whining.
Well, I mean, once again, I feel like even though this was the director, was he from America or is he?
Yeah,
from,
he's American.
Okay. He's American. He's trying to say something about America, boys and
Dumbasses. Dumbass
people.
tourists.
And
Okay, but Van Helsing wasn't much of a rocket scientist either.
No.
I mean, none of them were.
And he might, you might be right. He might have been like an American who like started living in that area because like his accent does change at times, so it might be that he's trying to fit in more with
I
the
will put to
local
you
people.
that every character in this movie was pretty much stupid.
I know.
I mean, like all the dudes in the pub. I mean, they were all stupid.
Well,
I
just
love
like when they
them.
were giving, Hunter Dracula all the tests. And we're like,
Yeah.
okay, we can see what's going on. And then they go back and they say, so is he a vampire? And Van Helsing's like, I'm not sure. I'm like, dude, how much sure do you need to be?
That's all the evidence we
Oh
need.
my God.
Well, I mean, what are you like? At that point, what are you gonna do anyway? I mean,
Right.
why don't you go there and try to kill him right then and there? They let him just leave.
Yes,
I'm
they
like,
do.
And he was talking about flying. Like, I love that part. That's one of my favorite parts. Is he's like, I flew in and I'm gonna fly out.
I know.
And I'm like, okay. He's obviously telling you he's a fucking vampire.
Well, that or somebody's gonna say, why are you talking like that? Why don't you talk like a normal person? Oh, because you're a vampire. Okay, now I get it.
I don't know. Everybody kind of talked weird at times.
Yeah, they did.
That's a weird.
I
talking.
for a little while there, I thought, was this movie dubbed? Was that? I think part of it was.
Really?
Yeah, I
know
think so.
Dracula was because he's the same voice for all three.
All three different Draculas,
okay.
Yeah,
right?
for every
Yeah,
actor.
you're right.
So
Yeah.
he had to be dubbed. So and sometimes it didn't. Honestly, it didn't look like the same guy was saying that stuff,
Right,
or
right.
whatever. So it looked
I
awkward.
didn't even notice.
Yeah.
There was too much other bad stuff.
I know. It was what about the castle? The castle with the painted rocks on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it looked like craft paper that had
Yes.
been duct taped up, and then someone just drew rocks, but they were all like exactly the same shape and size, like like you find
It's like
in nature.
somebody
right?
went to a craft store and got a pattern that's rock-like, and then they just papered it
Right,
on the
right.
thing, and it's the
Uh-huh.
same pattern over and over and over and over. It was ridiculous.
Ridiculous pretty much just sums up this movie anyway.
I know.
It's I was telling you, like, this movie felt like a What the Fuck Friday too. Like, this could have been good for that too. Like, if
And
you hadn't done it for IFC.
Don't forget Dracula's secret treasure, which really factored into
yeah,
nothing.
What was that little plot cul-de-sac? I mean, seriously.
I guess Dracula also sort of does a side job as a leprechaun because he had his little pot of gold.
Yeah.
Which they keep talking about maybe stealing,
Yeah.
and then they'll like pick up a handful of it and go, "Oh, I don't have time for this," and let it go. But you already have it in your hand.
Right, you can just put it in your
Where
pocket.
did it go? But they
You could do several
but
times.
nothing ever happens with it. So I mean,
But in the end, it didn't matter. They all became vampires.
Right.
When they do that, when they have it where all of it just didn't even matter at the end, then what was the point of the whole movie?
I mean, Van Helsing's a vampire at this point, and he's loving it by all
Oh yeah,
accounts.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I love when they're like running out of weapon ideas, and so Van Helsing goes to the one guy, the armorer guy, and he gives him this metal stick. And it's like,
which is
sharpen
clearly
this.
a lawn aerator.
Right,
That's
right.
what that is.
He's like,
Clearly.
here, make that nice and sharp. That'll be an excellent weapon. I'm like, really? You can't get a spear or an axe or
but
something?
Your best joke of the day, though. Remember when he gets stabbed with that thing? What'd you say?
Oh,
Good
yeah.
thing he was wearing a smoking
Smoking jacket,
jacket.
yeah. A little bit of smoke coming
Yeah,
out.
because apparently if you stab a vampire, the wound smokes.
Yes, as
well,
you do.
yeah, because like at one point the chick puts the cross on his, or he's stepping on the cross, and it's making his foot
that
smoke.
makes sense to me because it's burning him, right? But why would just getting stabbed with something burn you?
Because I think it's because wasn't it silver or something?
Was it?
I
I don't know very many.
It didn't
lawn
look like
aeration-
silver. It was
I-
green.
The only thing
None of my yard tools are made out of pure silver.
Really?
I'm trying, or iron or something. Like it was something that would cause a vampire.
It was somebody had an idea and said, wouldn't it look cool if we did this? And someone said, yeah, let's do it. That's what that's
Yeah,
from.
most people
AKA
don't do
the
their own
director.
yard
Yeah.
work. They won't know what this is.
I know, it's so funny.
It's ridiculous. Now let's talk about that. One of our favorite scenes in the movie was the fact that when she gets taken away on her, engagement night, taken away by Dracula. They left the window open.
She's
so,
asleep the whole
whatever.
time.
Yeah, she's asleep the whole time. He takes her. When she wakes up, she seems to be sort of happy being there.
Well, yeah, considering she could have been with dime store Brendan Fraser, and this is a step up.
She has a castle now. At least the guy plays the piano.
He
He's
has
got
a
some
different
kind of
shirt. Come on.
Yeah.
So she'll just go with anybody.
That part didn't bother me
I
that
think
much. So
we figured that out, that she was ready to hook up with
Who
anyone.
was gonna take her out of there?
She
Yeah.
was
She's
like,
like,
get out of this small town.
Look, I died and came back, and I want to live my life.
And I love these people,
Stuck
but
here.
God, I can't wait to get rid of them.
Yeah. So she's with that guy, and with him, and at first he's just like telling her, we're gonna be here together forever.
And make love
But-
forever.
Yeah, and so she's like, oh, that's great. And it's like, make love forever. What? Wait, what?
Yeah,
Hold on a
she's.
second.
Hey, wait a second here.
I wonder though if they were trying to do the thing like if you've read the original Dracula novel, he has a lot of seductive powers and everything. But I'm thinking, this Dracula, this one, I mean Chunkula.
Oh, he was a Dracula in that scene. He was more the Liberace Dracula.
Let's not forget Smoking Foot Dracula.
And Smoking Foot Dracula.
But so he I don't know. So he was like telling her, oh yes, we'll be whatever. And then she shows, he goes to touch her and sees the cross. He's like, get that off you, right? And then he takes it all off, like all her clothes off of him.
Oh, that's
He
better.
rips her nightie off, but there's no rip, and it all comes off in one piece. But he's just like, there it is. Physics. There's some laws of physics that have been violated right now.
Are you saying that this is not scientifically accurate?
I mean,
Or accurate in
I
any
wouldn't
way,
go- I wouldn't
stretch,
go
or
that
form.
far. Let's be fair,
And there aren't a whole lot of problems with being undead. At least if you're a chick. I mean, first of all, your clothes gets really, really nicely bedazzled.
Apparently.
Secondly, you get to sleep all the time.
Mhm.
And then the only other thing you're doing is dancing. There's a lot of dancing in the afterlife. Apparently.
There is,
Apparently,
yeah.
And yeah, all the Dracula girls dance together.
And what was up with them dancing in the broad daylight in the sun? They're like, oh, they're very sensitive to sunlight, and then it pans immediately to a shot of
Yes.
3 vampire women dancing in full sunlight.
Nothing like inconsistencies in your own mythology
But
where
it's like
you
they just said something
right
about it.
you go out of your way to say, oh, it's okay that they're in the daylight because it just can't be broad daylight
Or they
directly hitting them. Can't be struck by it.
Right. And
When
then,
we've just seen that
yeah,
happen.
they're like, oh, it's because I was wearing my hat. And then we see this this vampire girl running into a barn and it's broad daylight. We're like, it looks like the sun is really striking her right now.
I know, it's like,
and you just said it.
girls, didn't you just hear what this guy
Pay
said?
attention, class.
Yeah.
Also, the part that really pissed me off, and
There's
but
so many
also
of
made
them.
me have fun with it too, was made a game out of it. Was when we were doing the day and night.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
daylight.
It's daylight.
It's
not
night. It's
day.
daylight.
The classic
Night.
continuity
Back
Back
error.
and forth,
Yeah.
back and forth.
Because, like, I mean, you're living in a life of like already past Plan 9. You know,
I mean,
where,
they did it like 7 times or something, where they'd show him on the castle and it's clearly night, and then Van Helsing down on the bank of the river, clearly day. And I mean, it was like 7 times they did that. You know, like
it didn't make any sense.
It was so funny.
And it was
you've
horrible.
given up at this point. You've
Yeah.
absolutely given up.
Special effects. What did you guys think of the special
The backwards
effects?
flaming arrow.
The backwards flaming
Chef's
arrow was
kiss.
That was your
awesome.
favorite part,
Yes.
I think.
Well, that one, and of course, I love the terrible bats, terrible plastic bats, and the one little plastic rat. That was so funny,
You love the bat because they had that screaming sound you hear and everything.
right?
So it's like, yeah. So you're like, oh, those screaming bats.
Yeah,
You know, as opposed to the real ones that actually use echolocation, you never hear them. You know, no, not this time.
So you mean like every other bat in
But
the world?
that rat would have been perfect in a David the Rock Nelson movie because it was
Probably.
just a little plastic rat with a string that someone's pulling and just pulling it a little bit, and that's how it
Yeah.
makes it look like it's moving. That was perfect. I was like,
No.
dude, you're right there, right there. You're like Euro Dave the Rock
It
Nelson.
reminded me of doing like dioramas in elementary school, you know, and you'd have all your little characters on strings and you move them around.
It was so funny. And then, of course, you know, the vampire lightning and just the weird, you know, the Die Hard Dracula effect was cheesy. It looked like it was done on a Casio computer from 1982. It was just, it looked
That was
bad.
terrible.
The flying coffin was pretty excellent.
That was
And
awesome.
At one point, it looked like there was just like a GoPro camera on top of it.
Oh yeah, so
GoPro
it's actually
Dracula.
following-
Yeah, point of view
GoPro
shot,
Dun,
you know.
da, 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 dun,
Oh,
da,
and
da,
the
da,
music,
da.
yeah, like release the flying monkeys.
There
Out of
was
his
a
butt.
lot of music that you liked. Like, I mean, it was
It
classical
was
music.
solid classical music. We had some Tchaikovsky, Beethoven, Strauss, and what was the other one? Wagner, obviously.
That was the
Yes.
good stuff, but unfortunately, there was also a lot of inappropriate music that just did
Oh.
not fit the
Oh
scene.
yeah, and I can't remember. I think the one you're talking about is the bedroom scene. I think that was off in
That was yeah. There were
anyway,
several
It
times
was terrible.
where
Yeah, it was terrible.
it was just bad. It was just a poor choice of music. It's like this is clashing with the tone you're trying to set.
Well, maybe not though. Maybe they're like you said. Maybe they were going for a comedy, but they were just really bad.
Oh,
at
God.
it.
The scene with the banging of the bed.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
Lord.
what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
so
Yeah.
it was so ridiculous because
On
yeah,
and on
it
and
kind
on.
of did, and then you even put it out. But like when I was watching, I was like, "Wait, what?" I thought it would have been funny if Van Helsing ran in and was like, "What's all that banging?"
I
Yeah,
think the music they were playing in that scene is the same music they use in Home Alone when they're all running to catch the plane.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
That's the tone they wanted to set for the sex scene. But,
They're incorrect. But before even that, they had some weird soft jazz kind of crap on
yeah,
there.
it sounded like he was getting ready to hook up with somebody, you know. But he was just staggering around alone from bar to bar, seeing women's faces in his drinks.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, special effects right there.
Yeah.
You saw the woman and
Now, was that his girlfriend or was it
no,
the other one?
it was the other. It was
Okay.
Yeah, it was the
Carla.
future chick that
So
we hadn't
he had a-
seen putting the whammy on him from
he had a-
afar.
Premonition of this.
Yeah.
This.
That's another thing that pissed me off. It's like, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, this girl is calling to him, I guess. But, like, you don't just, I'm sorry. If my girlfriend just died and I made a wish that she would come back or that somebody would come back, I did not realize
Because
I fucked up like that.
I
But
fucked up.
I wouldn't be like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go to Prague. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna solve all my problems. You know?
I'm going to disagree with you on that, though. I mean, how many people had something really bad happen in their life, and they're just like, I just need to go find myself. I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to eat, pray, love it, and that's what he was doing. He was trying to
eat, pray, loving it.
Yes, it was.
And I buy that part to get into Prague, but after that, when you have all of Europe to explore, it's like,
Why do you go to Moravia?
I'll just go to Moravia and drop off my car, leave all my shit behind, don't contact anyone, and then wander off aimlessly into the woods.
And marry the first chick that I find.
Who doesn't run screaming from me.
Well, we hadn't gotten a hospital yet. That's not till 2005.
That's true.
So they weren't aware that bad things happen when you go on a road trip to Europe.
Oh.
And you don't have your little Bedeker's guide telling you where to go and what hotels to stay at, what hostels to stay at. It's just ridiculous. Oh my God.
No.
Yeah, he was really winging it.
Ugh, such a terrible, terrible film.
Yeah, terrible.
So like I said, the director was a stunt guy, a stunt coordinator.
Which did not show at all.
Exactly. That's kind of where I'm going at. It's like, did you see any of that expertise in this movie at all?
No. I mean, were there any stunts really except for them falling into the river?
Well, I think they climbed a couple of sets, but that's about it.
Like, I'm climbing a ladder that is off screen. Yay.
I haven't really seen, there wasn't much stunts,
He fell in the hay.
He did fall in the hay.
But you're like, roll in the hay.
Roll in the hay. And I was like, ow, I found the needle.
Like, don't reference a good movie in the middle of a bad movie. Sorry. That was my bad.
I mean, no, but, it makes sense because if this is trying to be like, a Mel Brooks style comedy or something, which I bet at one point this was supposed to be that way. Like Dracula Dead and Loving It, which was not good. That was like my least favorite Mel Brooks movie. But this was worse. This was worse than Dracula Dead and Loving It.
There are a lot of bad Dracula comedies out there. Several of which
this is the first one I've ever seen.
Several of which
haven't seen Dead and Loving It,
are ripe for IFC, and I'm going to start bringing them in. But there's just so many of them. And a lot of them are not necessarily Dracula, but they're bad vampires. There's a bad disco vampire movie I have to show you guys. It's so bad.
That sounds wonderful.
So awful. And even that, there's several versions of that too. It's just, oh my God. So bad vampire movies are kind of one of my favorite shticks because it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, if they're done like this, where it's just utterly incompetent, then it's fun. If it's done like kind of, I've seen a lot of vampire movies that are just kind of boring.
Right.
Because they try to take themselves too seriously, and this one at least. I mean, it's still a terrible movie, but at least it didn't take itself so seriously.
It does try, like the whole scene, the whole idea of Dracula going to the dentist. That could have been a lot of fun if they had done it properly. They couldn't, but at least they thought about it. At least they thought outside the box. I'll give them that much.
We have never seen Dracula go to the dentist. That's a funny idea.
And it leaves it up to, open for a sequel where he goes to like the DMV or gets a
Dracula at the DMV.
Hey,
I know I live forever, but come on.
Yeah. Like, dude, does the undead really need a colonoscopy?
Yeah, right.
See, that's good skits. Like those are good, funny, like Saturday Night Live type skits, or whatever.
But you can't do an entire movie based on that.
You could.
Yeah, usually that doesn't work. Though.
I think we should.
I think that could be a funny thing. It's just it has to be done well enough where all the jokes work and there's still a plot.
Well, and again, like we pointed out with other movies that try to be funny, if you're going to do comedy, it has to be quick. It has to have timing. You have to know what you're doing.
The punchline's got to stick.
Yeah, and it's got to be somewhat more universal, so that, you have a better chance of other people seeing it and also finding it funny.
Funny that you say universal, and it's a Dracula movie.
I know.
Like,
ha. Comedy.
I don't get it.
Comedy. See?
Universal.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a universal joke.
Oh, obviously.
Apparently not. But yeah, so it was just one of those things where it was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a pun. It sucked.
What pissed you off at the end of the movie? You were just like, I'm going to tear this movie apart. This movie pissed me off so much.
Did. If they didn't do the
He was
coma
so angry.
thing, if they didn't do the coma thing and they just came back home and somehow or whatever they decided, like, they could have ended it. This is how I would have ended it. Because they kind of like left where Dracula was dead.
Sort
right?
of, kind of.
Yeah, he got blown up, man. If he had somehow just put himself back together again, I would have been so mad. But he probably would have. But, if they got their people together at the end and said, you know what? Let's all take them. And they all got into a line and they all started walking and that's how they ended it. I would have been like, yeah, that's the way to end it. No. They fucking pissed me off. Like,
the whole coma thing was just so unnecessary. It lasted for like 20 seconds. It didn't add anything to the plot in any way because they all end up right back at the castle, all vampires. Why did they need to fool him for those 20 seconds? Like, is that the amount of time it took for him to like come to acceptance? Was it the stages of grief or something? I mean, really? There was no reason for it.
It's one of the many times where I'm like, movie, are you trying to gaslight me? Are you trying to change the reality? No, I've already seen what you were showing me beforehand. Next, you're going to see him.
The thing at the beginning, too, like, it added nothing. Like, the whole 300 years ago, I ended up getting this virgin girl.
Which you see her throughout the movie too. I get, but like they really didn't need it.
She was unnecessary.
She was unnecessary.
Or couldn't they have just said, "Hey, this is my chick, from 300 years ago."
Right.
Done.
Yeah.
We didn't need to see, Captain Crunch or whatever.
Unless King Vitamin was one of the producers and said, "All right, I'll give you $50,000 towards this." Yeah, exactly. Because that's the only other way I could see it.
Stunts provided by Burger King.
Yeah. He was like this guy.
The underwriting.
And then it was funny because you get to see her dad, and her dad was like, it just gets the shit kicked out of him, and he gets hung. And instead of feeling bad, I was just laughing. It just looked stupid.
She had shoes on, and he didn't. Did you notice that when he was hanging, he had no shoes on? But the girl that was still the lazy virgin in the pajamas had shoes on. Dad did not. Dad was already up and working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had no shoes. You're gonna get hookworm, man.
So much wood paneling. So much wood
paneling. Yeah.
You sort of brought up a good point before, though, about the dad and just not feeling sorry. You don't feel sorry for anybody in this movie.
No.
There's nobody to root for.
Nope.
There's nobody to care for.
Nope.
Except Salvador Dali. I liked him. I wanted him to be alright.
I liked Carla.
Him.
I liked her.
I like the stuttering guy. I don't care.
Oh, yeah. Dennis?
I liked Carla. She was absolutely desperate to get out of that one Starbucks town anywhere.
Yeah.
And so desperate enough to hook up with dime store Brendan Fraser.
Or Leslie Nielsen, father, the father of the girl. Who, it was just... Those characters, those people were just okay, In
little bits, they were okay, but the more you stuck with them, the more like, okay, these people are irritating.
Salvador Dali didn't have any personality. I just liked his mustache.
Gotcha.
Now that's enough for me.
Yeah. Ugh, it's just so
Simple
weird.
Needs.
And they had that one, it was always framed so that one weird crayon picture was in the background at all times.
It bothered you, I don't know.
Oh, it always bothered me, the background.
Yeah, brick and brackets and things like that that are just in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Never bothers me because I'm never looking for that shit. I don't know.
Well, it sticks out, and when it sticks out like that, it bothers, because there's a reason. You're either lazy and you don't give a shit, or you're more like Kubrick, who puts things in his vision for a reason. There's nothing is there by happenstance. It's there to help tell the story or help set the mood.
That they couldn't move that picture.
The crayon picture. Do what you want in this place, but don't move the crayon picture.
Could be. I don't know. I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. They just did
I'm
not
thinking it was the director's daughter drew that.
Yes.
And we're gonna show this off, and it'll be a star in the movie.
Or a producer paid money.
40 years from now, she'll be like, that's the most successful thing I've ever done in my life.
That's sad.
I know.
Don't make that. Don't wish that on that.
Well, there isn't much success that comes with this particular film for obvious reasons, but I think This is in like it's pretty famous for being in the worst IMDb movies group, and I think it's something like I don't know, like a less than a whole point or a whole star. It's pretty bad. That's one of the reasons why a long time ago I was looking around for bad movies and I saw that and I was like, oh, this looks bad. I never heard of it. Let's see if I can find it. And when I bought the DVD and I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. I can't wait to show this to everybody, especially people who love Dracula and love vampire movies. You know, it's so ridiculous.
Oh man, it's there's Tommy Wiseau vampire. There's and I remember us going like
Tommy Wiseau / Liberace.
Yeah,
depending on whether or not he's in front of the piano.
And Count Chunkula, don't forget that.
But the Tommy Wiseau one, I'll tear you apart, Lisa.
Well, I love when you were like, oh, don't fat shame. I'm like, fat shaming Dracula? Come on.
That's funny enough, but it's sort of like, I don't know, I kind of feel bad, like that dude, whatever, you know. But he was the one who agreed to be Dracula.
Right.
I mean, if you agree to be Dracula, you genuinely want to take the weight off.
And you look grotesque like that, people are going to notice.
But there was also that had to be like the plan. Like when they
it was
wrote that
part
movie,
of the comedy, quote unquote.
Right. When they wrote the movie, they were like, you know what, we're gonna make Dracula a fat slob.
Now, it could have worked if they were actually serious about it and trying to make it creepy, because what's creepier than a fat, bloated, grotesque corpse?
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Well, because his skin was all like green tinged too, so I mean.
So can you imagine having something like that getting up next to you and biting you and putting its lips on you and it's all bloated and just decaying and grotesque? That could have been frightening and disturbing, but that's not the direction that they went.
And that's like well in the canon of Dracula art that he's kind of old and decrepit until he drinks enough blood.
Right. Or, there are the things like, you don't see him in the mirror except very few times. And when you do, instead of seeing him really handsome and young, you see him decayed and covered in maggots and stuff like that.
I did not know
that happens every now and again.
Sounds like a what's that book? Dorian Gray.
Oh yeah, a little bit of Dorian Gray in there. Yeah. But so there are ways that you can work with that. It just didn't happen in this film because they just didn't really care about that. They were trying to go for easy yucks, I think, and it just didn't.
Easy yucks.
Just didn't quite come across. All right. Well, I think we are at that time where we have to talk about scoring this film.
Uh-oh.
All right. So for the benefit of those folks who don't follow our show, and shame on you because you really, really should.
Yeah, subscribe.
Please. This is the part where we take our scores between 1 and 10, by which 1 is a very, very low score, and it doesn't have very much stink at all, up to a 5, which is kind of in between, kind of meh. And then a 10 is a great big fat steaming barrel of stink because it's a really, really bad, bad film. Not to say that it isn't fun, you didn't enjoy it, but it means that there's quite a lot of problems and a lot of issues and stuff that just did not work. And you might have enjoyed it in spite of all that.
Or you can also give it 0.5. Right?
You could. You can give a half step if you feel subtle. And we take our scores from our 3 reviewers, we add them all up, and then we figure out what is the stinkiest movie of the season.
We've got this thing called the Ladder of Stink.
Yes.
And, we take them and put them up there and see what they're like, next to.
And as you go up the ladder, you ascend into the stinky heavens. There's only a few ones that have actually got 30s that are up in stinky heaven, but everybody else is kind of a step below. And it's rare air up there.
It's not that rare.
There's some folks there. There's some Neil Breens up there. We just had a new inductee up there with Dave Nelson. We'll have to show you that someday.
Yeah, what are some of the ones that have gotten?
Hanuman and the 5 Riders. And we'll have to show you that too at some point. Yeah, that's a glorious mess.
Neil Breen.
2 Neil Breens.
David the Rock Nelson and
Zombie Cop.
Yeah. Oh, and Turkish Star Wars.
Turkish Star Wars.
Oh yeah. And that's the better of the crappy Star Wars ripoff movies I have.
Nice.
That's the better one?
Oh, yeah. But to get back to Die Hard Dracula, now we have to give a score. So, Moody, I know what you wanted to give. sometimes we talk you out of those scores. Sometimes we did that in our last one, but
Are
I'm
you saying you think that I'm going to come out of a coma and
it was all a
my
dream.
mind, it was
That's
all a
right.
dream to say that I said I changed originally my score when I was first watching the movie.
When you were angry and hot.
No, before I was angry and hot, when I was watching the movie, kind of like enjoying this stupidity, but still knowing it was a terrible movie. I was giving it a 9, and then that fucking thing happened, and just rose it to a 10. Just like, and I will stand by that.
It was funny because the credits are coming up and he's like, I hate you, and I hate you, and I hate you, and I hate you.
Absolutely.
He was
Everybody
personally
hates
offended.
movies.
He
I
was. It was
This
so much
movie
fun.
was so terrible. And I will still give it a 10. I'm sorry. It gets a 10 for me.
Okay.
So, honestly, a lot of it didn't feel that bad to me. It was still entertaining. And I don't just mean because of the things we were able to make fun of. I was just kind of like, all right, I could see, like, if I was super bored, I could watch this and just be like, yeah, that was pretty dumb, but I passed the time and it was better than, I don't know, doing laundry. So, I was actually hovering around an 8 or something, but then the coma thing happened, and I was like, what? Because not only, it's not just because it's a cheap trick, but it was completely unnecessary, and they didn't even, like, go with it. They showed it for a second, and they're like, never mind, we didn't really need to do that, it's irrelevant. What the hell?
Right.
So I went back up to a 9. I don't think I'm capable of going to 10, though, because I've seen some things that were so much worse than this.
Yeah.
That I just don't think I can go there. But I was, hovering around like a 7.58 because I thought, God, I've seen worse.
So you went to a 9.
I went to a 9 just because of the coma thing. Just
Yeah.
because. So.
See, it
So
changes. It changes you.
It
I
does.
Feel the sentiment. I feel the sentiment.
So yeah, I'm up. I'm there with Moody. To me, it hovered around 9.5, and the coma thing was just the dirty, disgusting, rotten cherry
Icing
on top of the stink pile, and that pushes it over. That's the Neil Breen effect. That little extra bit that just pushed it over.
See, Neil does that the whole movie.
Yeah, I know.
This movie did it in just one fucking swoop.
So I'm gonna go for a 10 as well.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. I guess I'm a kind-hearted,
You are kind of.
It's fine. We actually like that. It's.
Because if you give everything a 10, you got nowhere to go.
Well, here's the thing. So last season we had a lot of movies that should have been 30s. Obviously. This I'm not mad that this is not a 30.
Yeah, me either.
Because I'm like, this is bad. Like if I hadn't been that pissed off, like I said, like if that stuff, the coma didn't happen, it would have gotten lesser stuff. But that just angered me to the point where I can't give it.
And it was right at the end too, so it's like stuck in your mind.
Not just that, like also like I was enjoying it up until then. Like I was like, oh, this is so stupid and goofy and fun, and I like this, and that just did it. That was it. So I can see where people could still give it a lower score. So even if other people gave it like an 8 or something, but I could nothing lower than an 8. Nothing lower than an 8. But it was so terrible. Like it just irritated me, and I had a feeling like I almost thought you were gonna give it a 9, Paul. Just because I know like 10s are like a little bit more difficult for you because that means it has to be in Neil Breen territory. This movie is not Neil Breen territory.
But that one part was.
That one part, and the thing was, it was a 9 thanks to Bruce Glover. Bruce Glover, I thought was pretty good in the film. He was like the one little sliver.
He was good.
Of all the people that was there, he was probably the best in my opinion. He was entertaining. He made the character fun.
He kept pushing the guy into fighting.
I loved that.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. Like you're just like, oh, go fight.
So for that, I was like, okay, this is a crappy movie.
We forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, the near smooch.
The near smooch.
Yeah, that lasted an uncomfortably long time.
They were so close.
Your faces are just get your faces away.
I don't know why they were so close. Like literally did not need to be that close to each other.
Because the camera wasn't moving.
There must
that's
have been
why.
a wall behind them or something. I can't back up, guys. Me too.
But he was like the one shred I had that was keeping it from being a 10. And then the whole thing with the coma, and then I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. And then when they all become vampires, I was like, oh, for crying out loud. So that pushed it over. That was the tipping point. So I get it when you had that was pretty much my reaction when I first saw it.
Like, come on, like this is
You
bullshit.
made me go through all of that only to take it away from me. Why did I go through all that?
They didn't even do that because they didn't even run with the premise of it was all a dream because it clearly wasn't. So I mean,
It was all a coma.
It was all.
it wasn't anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything.
It was like he woke up and he was still exactly where he was just at.
Yeah.
So like, when did he go into the coma?
He didn't.
You never
Nothing
saw it.
He didn't.
They're gaslighting us about the coma.
Because
Yes.
he never got bit or anything.
Well,
Like
he might have. We just don't
no,
know.
we never,
We never saw it.
So
Well, we never saw it.
here's
Yeah.
here's the
We
thing.
never saw Van Helsing get bit either.
Nope.
Well, right. But see, that could have happened after the coma. Like, I get that. Like, that is fine and whatever. And Dracula's alive and well and running around like everything's
I mean,
okay.
if you're going to do this stupid coma idea, and I really hope you don't, but if you're going to, what you do is you say he wakes up and all of a sudden the original girlfriend's there and the friend is there. And it's like, oh yeah, when you fell out of the boat, you hit your head and all that other shit was just a dream and your girlfriend's still alive and none of that
I
shit
would've been
happened.
okay with.
Right, that would have worked.
That actually would have made me happy.
And then she like smothers him with a pillow. She's like, "Here you go, safety nerd."
Safety nerd. That would have been great. I would have loved that.
That would have been funny. And see, that would have been funny, and that would have been a great way to
Here's
end
for
the
not
movie.
being able to remember my name when you were wishing on a star.
Here's for wearing the same goddamn shirt for 3
And
weeks.
cheating on me in your coma.
Right.
I mean, I'm not even cold in the ground, and you're cheating on me already.
I'm not actually dead at all, and you're cheating on me.
And your damn whiny voice.
But like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, if it had, something else. Like, if it could have been that, I would have been okay if he had woken up.
I would
and
not have been
everybody
happy,
else.
but it would have been acceptable.
No, I would have been happy, like 100%. I would have knocked it down from a 9 if it had done that, because like at least it made sense, at that particular moment. This movie just. It didn't make sense before, and then it just went. Whoop.
Yeah, there were several times when you guys were like, I don't understand what's happening.
I know, and then you're like, it'll make sense. No, it won't.
It did. No, it finally did. The whole meteor hitting the coffin thing, because we were both like, because the two female characters were like so nondescript and boring that it was like, is that the same girl? I couldn't
Yeah,
even
we
tell.
can't remember.
I mean,
what she looked
apparently
like.
they didn't even have the same hair color, but
They didn't have the same name.
I
they
just
didn't
couldn't
have-
even differentiate them because I'm like, these are like two people I have
Well, the
absolutely no
jump
interest in.
from the one thing to the next thing to the next thing is so
Oh.
abrupt. You don't have time. There's no way to even figure out
Also-
what's going on.
With the nondescript chick, he looks over at her and he goes, Carla? Right? And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
How does he know her name
How does
already?
he know? Because in her dreams and pictures and stuff, she never once says, my name is Carla, or anything.
Must
Or-
have been one of the dreams we weren't privy to. They just didn't have time to show us all
Was
the
that another
dreams.
coma? That
Yeah,
we didn't see?
yeah.
I
Well,
mean, Jesus.
Oh, and they foreshadowed it when he was driving in his Carla, the little yellow Carla.
That was terrible. That was terrible.
But it fits in with that movie.
Oh, you're gonna make me want to hate this episode too now with the.
And
don't give it more credit than it deserves.
I know.
You don't think they thought that hard, do you?
So much fun.
Joke. But it kind of fits with this fucking movie. Terrible jokes and then terrible situations, and everybody's a vampire at the end. So I guess none of everything that they were doing just didn't even matter.
None of it mattered.
Because none of them were mad that they were vampires.
Nope.
They're all happy. It's like saying, okay, like you're gonna create zombies, right? You're gonna and then you're gonna fight these zombies. You're gonna lose. You're gonna become a zombie, and then you're like, oh, hey,
It's actually all right.
Not that bad.
Should have done this years ago.
Yeah.
years ago. Man.
Ridiculous.
Live forever, eat brains, whatever.
Don't have to worry about the fact that I never
Maybe
changed
that's
my
how
shirt.
people feel
That's true.
when they become Nazis. They're like, oh, this isn't that bad, it's easy to slide in there.
Speaking of brain dead,
Yeah, brain dead.
dear. All right,
To make
guys.
it contemporary.
I think we've talked about this movie more than it
Do
deserves.
you think we talked about it to death?
Yes, I do. I do. So thank you all very, very much for joining us. God knows
Thank
what
you,
we're going to
Joe.
find
Thank
out next
you for
time.
having me.
Yes, and thank you for the pie. We
Thank you.
appreciate
Yay.
that.
That's so sweet.
And yeah, please join us next time. Thanks to all of you for listening in. Join us next time for our next episode of Indie Film Cafe. It'll be Mr. Moody's turn.
Yes, and guess what it'll be? It'll be our first 100th
Oh,
episode.
okay. Very good.
So first 100th, because we'll explain all of that
Yeah.
on that
Is
episode.
that like second breakfast? Like hobbits?
Kind of, sort of. Kind of, sort of.
Sort of. There's two. We're gonna have 2 100th episodes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Blame
we're not trying to be
continuity
fancy.
monkey.
It was a mistake. So even at Indie Film Cafe, we make
It
mistakes.
was all a dream. That's all I'm going to say. It was all a dream.
Paul woke up from a coma
That's
and
right.
realized he fucked up.
That's right. Exactly. No, I blame the monkey. I don't know where he is.
Uh,
He's hiding.
He's like,
Thanks, Greg.
there were a couple continuity things.
Oh,
so
dude, the
he-
whole thing was a continuity error.
That's what it was.
Bad.
It was bad.
But thank you all very much for joining us, and hopefully you will join back for our next wonderful episode. Hopefully we'll have Miss Jo back with us, right?
Yes. Were you happy with
When
this
they
season?
let me out, yeah.
Yay. All right. Well, thanks again, and we will see you next time. Bye. Okay, and... It was all a coma.
Oh,
Come on, you
God,
love that
that
movie.
movie.
Oh, it was pretty fun. Yeah.
it was a fun time. It pissed me off.
Liberace vampire. I like that a lot.